Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. This is the Self-Control Show, and I'm your host, Jason Schnitzer. This is episode 1. And I thought I'd kick it off by just doing more or less an about me, who I am, a little bit about myself, what I like to do, etc., and then kind of give you an overview of my mission and what I hope to accomplish on these shows and episodes. So again, I'm Jason Schnitzer. I'm 36 years old now, husband of 10 years. My wife's name's Brianna, and I'm a first-time father to a 7-month-old boy named Colby. Currently, for the past 13 years, I've been a realtor / real estate investor, basically turned self-control coach, and I kind of work on both of those things simultaneously. I've been training jiu-jitsu for 8 years now, and I'm currently a brown belt. I love to bow hunt, shoot archery. I'm real big into training, fitness training, especially with regards to biomechanics, kind of functional pattern stuff. My real drive is just I want to be able to be physically active for as long as possible until, as old as I can be. I love to shoot guns. I train weekly with my pistol and carbine and bolt rifle when I can. Love hiking, love the outdoors, love training, and love spending time with good buddies. My mission for this podcast and really my coaching business as a self-control coach is to help men face the storm. And what I mean by this is as men and in my own personal life, I'd always felt like I was followed around by this dark looming cloud. And there were a lot of things that I just didn't deal with in life just because from a societal and cultural norm. Sitting with emotions, being able to, wade through difficult feelings was always something that was never really been accepted or preached. And therefore, I tend to push those things away and avoid them or cope with them in various ways, substances, poor responses to those feelings. And really, I didn't have a good and healthy role model for that. And quite frankly, I don't think there are a lot of good, healthy, masculine role models out there for other men with regards to dealing with those types of circumstances that people and men especially face in their lives. So again, my motto for this show and these future episodes is always at the very root is face the storm. And I truly believe that that's been the number one driving force that has changed the direction of my life. And really my work and my own personal work with regards to building up to starting my coaching business has been going on for probably about 8 years now. Really the turning point for me was a couple of things. One, my marriage was just, in shambles. I wasn't able to be there emotionally to support my wife. The habits that I had created for myself in order to cope with the things that I had dealt with my entire life were very poor. My dad passed away from cancer. All in that same time, I severely threw my back out, had a pretty bad physical injury that, had to go to the hospital in an ambulance and just really shook my world up. And it was the first time that I really realized that I wasn't invincible. All that combined, not being happy in my profession on just a day-to-day basis, all that really pushed me to have a big shift and look in the mirror as to what it is that I was doing or not doing in my life that needed to change. And ultimately that, again, was facing my storm. And what that felt like and looked like for me was taking a long, hard look in the mirror and really asking myself, were the things that I was upset about and complaining about and pretty much victimizing myself about, how much of that was actually in my control? How much of that was I participating in in a way to protect me from the truth of what really was. And it wasn't until I started having those hard, long, difficult sits with myself and, allowing the truth of what those answers were to be true and what that meant, and feeling the feelings that came along with those truths, however difficult they were, that allowed me to gain agency over my life and allow me to be the one to basically lead myself forward, as opposed to being at the whim of, the victim of circumstance. Because when you are the victim of your story, then life happens to you versus, being the hero, if you will, or being a self-led man and actually creating the future that you want and doing things on a daily basis in order to get closer to what that looks like for you. Because ultimately what I always wanted to do was, of course, chase my dreams and be the best version of myself. And, how to do that, for the most part, at least in my experience, is I've always sought out, mentorship in places that I wanted to be, in modalities that I wanted to learn more. It's always like, hey, if you can go to the expert in that field, they can get you from point A to point B way faster than if you're just trying to do it by yourself. But what I was finding with regards to men's work is there just really isn't a lot with regards to resources for this type of stuff. It's like, the traditional people that I'd look up to, a lot of them being military, a lot of them being like high performing business people, the things that they did and the choices that they made and the techniques that they would preach, for me at least, it didn't seem like it was very well-rounded or holistic, if you will. They were very good at doing, maybe this one thing over here, but like if you looked at their life as a whole, it wasn't necessarily something that I wanted for myself. The military's ways of doing things seems very black and white, very rigid almost, if you will, very much discipline. But if you aren't able to do the thing because you felt a certain way, well, you're constantly having to override, your feelings, which can be beneficial in certain ways. But, from a long-term approach, at least this has been for me, it's really tough to keep on berating and forcing yourself and belittling yourself to get yourself to do the thing. And it just didn't seem to have a lasting or sustainable effect for me. And the other people that I looked up to were like really successful business people, but then I found that these people that are really successful in business, that didn't necessarily translate over to being a good friend or being a good spouse or being a good, father figure. So they were like really hyper dedicated into this one aspect and then lacked a lot in areas of their life that maybe required a bit more softer skills. So again, that's just kind of my story, and my idea behind this podcast is to kind of bring the two worlds together. It's great to be able to build wealth. It's great to be able to develop a strong body, but also being able to integrate the ability to face your storm and to stop running from the things that seem to be following you everywhere you go, especially as a man. The pressures that are on you that maybe most people won't see. There's like a commonality that all of us are kind of struggling with the same thing, but nobody really ever wants to sit down and have a good, honest talk about that. And really, how do you actually do that work for yourself so that you can integrate those things that maybe you have shame around or you have guilt around or you're embarrassed to talk about. And once you're able to do that in your life, what that allows for you is, at least in my experience, is you can walk around without that cloud. Or if that cloud's there, you can face it and do the work for yourself so that everything seems to be more clear and feels lighter. And when you have that sense for yourself, you can move forward with more control over the things that you do want to do or don't want to do. And ultimately, I think that, the idea of self-control is at the root of anything that we want to achieve in life, whether that be wealth, whether that be better relationships, or whether that be forging the body that, we know we deserve. And, for example, in order to build wealth, well, you have to have self-control with regards to the things that you're going to do on a daily basis, the habits that you're going to form in order to get closer to creating an income high enough to where you can invest that in smart, strategic ways to, create and sustain financial freedom. Same thing with relationships, unless you have to have self-control so that you're not emotionally reactive to your partner's feelings, where you can be, face your storm and have that be calm so that when somebody else brings their storm to you, you have enough bandwidth and space to be able to hold space up for them to share and not feel like you have to fix it. And of course, that goes hand in hand with, impulsivity and the other things that you deal with regards to, whenever you're going to be in a long-term monogamous relationship, there are self-control factors that will play there. And then of course, if you're trying to forge the body that you want to have and be able to, do physical activities for as long as you can, you're going to have self-control to do the things that you need to do on a daily basis in order to, grow and strengthen your body, and also what you decide to consume, whether that be foods, whether that be alcohol, whether that be other substances, and how that looks, and what is your recipe for feeling your best, to be able to perform your best, to be able to show up for your best. And again, my hope for this podcast is that I'm going to give you, specific techniques, advice, situations for all of these different aspects, and how you can use this information to integrate into your own life, in hopes that maybe I'm somebody that you can turn to when there is something that is, bothering you, or you're unsure of how to deal with in a healthy way, and even a healthy masculine way, if you will, and just be a fountain of knowledge and an example that, I hope that is a positive and lasting aspect for you guys, because that was certainly what I was looking for when I was in my late teens and early 20s, is I was trying all the things, the more discipline, the hustle harder, the suck it up, the keep going, the grind. I read all the self-help books. I, read all the wealth books. I did all the things. I did the martial arts, the weight training, all of the things that they say that you're supposed to do. I checked off all the boxes of, I should be married, I should own X amount of houses, I should build this much wealth, I should make this much money. And I did all those things, and there was still, again, this looming cloud that was following me day to day. And that was the big missing piece to my puzzle, that if I would have had when I was in my, late teens, early 20s, even my early 30s, it's like having this self-control, being able to face the storm is just like a crazy real life cheat code, like secret weapon that if I had at that time, it's like one of my own things that I had to get over was learning this at the time that I did, and the frustration and the, grief and disappointment that it came with, like wishing that you had that back when you were younger. I think the line is like, man, I wish I knew then what I knew now. And it's like, of course, we all wish that, but especially so for the training that I do in my coaching program and the things that I've learned. This has really been the missing piece to the puzzle that has made everything else possible for me. And to do it in a way that is lasting and sustainable and doesn't require for you to beat yourself up or berate yourself or belittle yourself. Because I think we can all, well, at least for me, can say, I'm my own worst critic, or I was my own worst critic at times and still am. But I've very much healed that relationship. And turning it into one where I am my own, biggest supporter, and those around me are the same for me. So again, that's me, and I'm looking forward to a lot more of these. And if you're still listening, I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.